Well, welcome to another episode of Back to Paranormal. My name is Brian Mitchell, and this is a show we talk about things that go bump in the night and all these mysterious things that happen to people in houses and stuff. And I am here with my wonderful, beautiful co-host.
Hello, how are you?
It's Marjorie. Hi, Marjorie. How are you?
Hi, darling.
Yeah. So you're very pretty tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's because I'm looking at you.
Thank you. Well, I love looking at you. Anyway, we are here. This is going to be a first for us because normally we've reviewed books and we've done some movies and TV shows about the paranormal. And today we are going to do an interview. And who is that interview with?
Psychic medium Jennifer Ann. The lovely psychic medium Jennifer Ann.
She is lovely and she is amazing. And I had a reading done with her about 13, 14 years ago. And she knew stuff. I mean, I went into the reading with nothing. You know, she knew nothing about me. All she had was my name and probably email address. And she knew stuff that I didn't even know, which sounds pretty amazing. But I actually said a prayer before going into the meeting, and one of the things I said in the prayer was, "I want to know that she's not reading me." And basically, she's pulling the information from somewhere, so I know she's not reading my mind or whatever, or possibly fishing around for information. She came up with information that I had no knowledge of until after the reading. And this went up to a week. And basically it was all the stuff that I wanted to know or didn't know. All of a sudden it was all revealed to me. And she said it all in this reading. She's absolutely amazing. And I thought for our podcast, I thought it would be excellent if we could get her on here. And she doesn't do a lot of these podcasts. She doesn't do a lot of interviews. She's a very private person. Mm-hmm. She's not a celebrity in the traditional sense like Tyler Henry or the Long Island Medium. We know who that is, or John Edward or any one of those people. She is, she is a housewife. She has kids, and she has this gift. And so I thought it'd be great to get her on. And so I reached out to her, and lo and behold, she agreed to do it. And
I was so happy for you when she agreed. You said she really doesn't do these things.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting to find out if she will. And then when they got back to us and said that she would, I was so happy for you. Yeah. Honestly, Brian, I think we were on like our maybe second or third date, and you talked about this woman and how it just absolutely stunned you.
Yeah.
How accurate she was, and I was so happy to meet her. And listeners, this woman is just such a wonderful soul. It just was such a treat to sit down, and I'm so excited for this interview.
Yeah, I've said elsewhere that she is the real deal, and I truly believe that from the bottom of my soul, if there is a bottom of a soul. And so anyway, we are actually having tonight. Okay,
we have a beverage.
We do have a beverage
in her honor.
In her honor, because when she did the interview with us, she had, what'd she have?
She brought in one of my favorite drinks, the iced chai latte. So I made us an iced chai latte in her honor. So we have to boop.
Okay, so here we go. We're gonna boop.
Jennifer Ann.
Boop. Here.
Boop.
Boop. There we go.
Yay.
I'm gonna try this stuff. That's pretty good.
Isn't that yummy?
It's pretty good. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, organic rooibos chai. Delicious.
So anyway, what's really there were things that I learned because I talked with her about 2 weeks before because she agreed to come on, and we chatted for about an hour before the interview. And I learned things that we have very similar interests and stuff like that. And that was actually kind of mind blowing too, because we both come from artistic backgrounds. And so you'll learn that all in the podcast. This is a two-parter. And so this week, you'll hear that first part. And then next week, of course, will be the second part. So I had to clarify that if you haven't already figured it out. And
we will enjoy part 1 of our lovely visit with psychic medium Jennifer Ann.
So here it is. And please enjoy. Well, today on Back to Paranormal, we have a special treat. And this young lady, she read me about 10, probably about 13 years ago. And it was an amazing reading. And she was absolutely spot on with everything. I mean, details came through later on. But what was amazing about this whole this reading, was the fact that I didn't tell her anything. She knew nothing about me, and she was still telling me things as I was walking out the door. So she's pretty incredible. She's a wonderful woman, and she has a husband and kids, and she lives on Long Island. And please welcome to the podcast, Jennifer Ann.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for accepting. I know you don't do a whole lot of these.
I don't.
Yeah, so
I don't, but there was something about you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, we spoke about an hour on the phone.
Yes.
And I don't know if that was continuous, but it was just a wonderful conversation with you. And I have people who have listened to the podcast, and I kind of clued them in that you're going to be here, and they sent some questions. So we'll ask you all the stuff. So.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're very, very grateful to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank you.
So the first question I'm going to ask you is, how did you discover this gift?
So there's a lot of answers to that. So I will make it as short as I can.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to make it just right.
So, okay.
Yeah.
When my mother's sister, so my aunt, was passing away, and back in those days they didn't have chemo. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, she was pretty much on her deathbed for like several months.
Right.
And in Brooklyn, we came from Brooklyn, and we lived on the same block. So my mother was taking care of her sister.
Right.
And, she was deteriorating, and it was very sad, but sure. I was only 2 years old at that time. What had happened was the spirit world was surrounding my aunt, and my aunt would have conversations with them, and it's a great story with the Mother Mary. So I don't want to bring religion into this, but
that's okay.
I sometimes do.
We do.
My family, I went to Catholic school. We were raised Catholic, and the Blessed Mother was huge with my family. And, she kept telling, so this is we call her my Auntie Ann. She would tell my mother, the Blessed Mother, she doesn't want to, take me yet. It's not my time. And, my mother would watch her raise her hands and be like, come on, I want to go. Cause she was suffering. I mean, she had cancer all over her body.
Wow.
So anyway, the family would kind of notice that, me as a 2-3-year-old walking around kind of talking to myself. And in all honesty, I think that's probably what started it. But I also believe that all children are intuitive. So I think that was pretty common. I think that would have happened to any of us. I think I just chose to continue speaking to them. So they never left. So when my aunt finally passed away, I think she stayed around as well. So I just continued those conversations. The one that I remember specifically was actually my mother and my aunt's father, who's my grandfather, who I was very, very close to. And he had passed away when I was 8, 9 years old. And I will never forget this because this is one that I actually remember. I was in my room playing with, Barbie dolls or something. And my grandfather appeared and he's like, listen, he's like, Grandma's going to go to the hospital, tomorrow. So just tell your parents, tell Mommy that Grandma's going to be okay, not to panic.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh, okay, Grandpa. Like, didn't think nothing of it. It was my norm. And then he went ahead and he's like, oh, by the way, you're going to marry somebody just like me. And, you know, being young, I was like, what? What does that mean? So that conversation was like very strange to me, but it was normal but strange, but it was like, I was a kid, so it's like, okay.
Right.
So I went down the stairs and I'm like, you know, hey, Ma, you know, Grandma's going to go in the hospital tonight or tomorrow, but don't worry, she'll be fine. So my mother's just looking at me like, what? And I'm like, I go to bed, I wake up the next morning. There's my mother and my father going, how did you know Grandma was going to go into the hospital? I go, duh, I told you. Your father told me. Grandpa told me.
Right.
So from that point on, they were just like, okay. But never, you know, dismissed it. They were always very open to it.
Wow.
Which was tough because my mother had the rosary beads in one hand and the Bible in the other hand.
Sure.
But thank God she was open to it, because that could have been a little, you know,
yes,
rough to me.
A lot of people feel like they have to choose between the formalized religion and spirituality, and it's like, well, it all started with the same thing.
Exactly.
You know, no matter what.
So then that just led to normalcy in my family.
Wow.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Because they were able to help you cultivate this.
We also had a cemetery in the back of our yard, so
That helps move things along.
yeah.
Wow.
So we were just a very open family.
Wow. That's really interesting because I don't know. I think we've talked about this on the podcast, and I think kids are very open. I think, and I think at a certain point it kind of gets shut down.
Yeah.
It does.
And I wonder if that's because the parents telling the kids, oh, you know, you're silly, that's just your imagination, whatever.
So I can answer that.
Oh, okay.
Because I have 2 children.
Okay.
So me and my sisters were raised. We were raised very open-minded. So obviously I have 2 children, right? Come from a very open-minded home.
Sure.
My daughter's still open-minded. My son, however, you know, his friends were not, you know, they were pretty closed. So I think they got into his head. And at one point, he was able to do this work. He was able to connect. But once his friends got into his mind, it closed him up.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think he has a choice. He can choose to stay closed, or he can choose to open back up. But that's his choice, and I would never push that on him.
Right. Wow. Well.
So
Isn't it amazing how you go through life and there's all this promise? I mean, there's all this, like I say on this show, this beautiful possibility. And then there are things or people in your life who come along and cap you. And they just cap it. And it's, I think in a way, sometimes quite tragic.
I think when kids want to become, like, you kind of have, like, I grew up creative. And so it was always something. It was always music or puppets or cartoons, animation, film, but it was all creating. It was all, and I think the first thing parents do is they shut that down too. You know, they'll go like, "Oh, you should go into computers, or you should go into accounting's good. Accounting's a good job, or whatever." A lot of parents do it. And dentist, yeah, and or doctor, right? So I think a lot of that does get shut down. I think especially if you're creative, I think you're more open to it, and you have a creative background, right?
I do.
Yeah.
My grandfather, actually the grandfather that I was speaking about, it's funny because you and I have a lot of that in common.
Yeah.
He would, every Sunday, because we were Italian, we would eat at like 2:00, and he was excited because he would get Newsday, the newspaper.
Yeah.
And back in the day, do you remember the comic section with like Garfield?
Right.
So he would every week, I'd come over, we would be the first ones over because we had a huge family.
Wow.
And he would be sharpening his pencil with a knife because that's what they did back then.
Sure.
And he would lay it all out for me on the table, and I would start drawing. And because of him, I feel like that is why at that point, I, like you, wanted to be a cartoonist.
Oh, wow.
And I have all those sketches. Yes.
That's amazing.
That led me to art and design in Manhattan. That's where I went to school. I was thinking about illustration, cartoonist.
Wow.
But then I went the path of fashion designer. So I used my sketching ability and all that, my creativity in fashion.
That's something my mother wanted.
His mother.
Yeah.
her sewing is literally will give you chills. The skill, the precision, the thoughtfulness. She's shown me some of the things that she's made, and I'm like, I want to cry because I'm like, they don't do this anymore.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
They really don't. Yeah, they don't. It's.
There's no appreciation. It's gone.
When-
I'm all doom and gloom today. What's wrong?
It's the weather. It's the weather. It's a little
the gloomy.
doom and gloomy. That's why I got my chai tea from Starbucks that I haven't.
I love chai
I
tea.
haven't drinking this in a while because it's fattening.
Right.
But I was like, you know what? I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Because of the weather. So
You got to make yourself happy.
exactly.
First and
And
Those
foremost.
little
my
things.
chai tea makes me very happy.
Iced chai latte. That used to be my go-to. I love chai tea.
When you okay, your grandfather visited you, but when did you realize that you could actually read people?
So I've always had these experiences, but I want to say about 20 years ago, my cousin tragically passed. Now I'm one of 14 cousins, so one of them tragically passed.
Wow, sorry.
And he has a great personality. So one day I'm in my bedroom and I'm sleeping. My husband's sleeping on the side, and I open my eyes because the TV was on. And the next thing I know, I see my cousin Frankie walking back and forth. So his soul.
Right.
But he looked like Frankenstein. But that was because his name was Frankie.
Right.
So he decides to show himself in apparition as Frankenstein because that's him. So he turns around and he goes, I know you can see me. Don't pretend like you can't. And I'm like, Frankie, I'm not pretending. I know I can see you.
Right.
But like, what are you doing? You know? And I'm like, you look kind of funny, you know? And then he disappeared because, you know, as an apparition, it's not easy for them to do that. And they don't, you know, it's not, you can't like stand there and have a full blown conversation with them. So it lasted like maybe like a second and a half.
What, is that because they're trying to pull together energy to create some form? Because
Yes, it's a lot of energy to
ton
do
of
that.
energy.
A ton. It's not easy for them to do that.
Right.
And when you were sorry, but when you speak, were you speaking out loud or telepathically?
So both.
Oh, okay.
Both, because my husband was sleeping. And even if I was talking out loud, he just ignores me. But it was both. It was both.
Wow.
Okay, so when you were very small and you were speaking to these spirits that were surrounding you, was there any any period of time where it was scary?
Oh, that's a good question.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I want to say when I became a preteen into my teenage years, because that's when society, you know, they try to convince you that you're crazy if you believe in the paranormal or you believe in talking to spirits.
Right.
So I did have, you know, I surrounded myself with wrong people, and they weren't the greatest friends. And, you know, they didn't believe in this. And then I kind of suppressed it, and it got me. There's truth behind having anxiety. I don't know if you've heard other mediums say that they're very anxious. There is truth behind that, and it's because, you know, we're trying to convince ourselves that we cannot do this. So I was afraid of it at one point. But I have to tell you, I don't know why, because all my experiences were either funny
Or beautiful.
Or beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you know, as I got older, I'm like, why did I feel that, you know?
Right, you were supplanting other voices for the true ones.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's
Fear.
because fear, and also maybe it's isolating.
It was very isolating.
Yeah,
It was.
I feel that.
Yeah. Well, when I was growing up, I mean, I don't think I can read people. I don't think I have that capability to do that, but I think I'm very sensitive to this stuff. And I've had premonition dreams, you know. I've had a dream that, you know, an actor died and it was
Like a really random actor.
it was a random actor. His name was Billy DeWolf. And so he acted in a bunch of films. He was a character actor. But I had this dream that it was like people running around in a studio and they're saying, Billy DeWolf passed away. Billy DeWolf passed away. And I was like, and I woke up and I was like, and it was a vivid dream. It was, and when I have those dreams, I believe it's real. But I was like, why am I having this dream? I just don't understand why I'm having this dream. And so I kind of just let it go. But about 5 days later, I turn on the radio. This is in the early 70s. And they announced on the radio, an actor, Billy DeWolf, passed away. And I was just like blown away. Now, I've heard these stories before. And
who is Billy DeWolf? That's the question.
He was a character actor.
Really?
He did cartoons. He was an actor in films.
So you had a direct connection.
Wow.
That's an energetic spiritual connection, because that's what you do. You're a cartoonist.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Makes perfect sense.
Well, what was weird about it, when I didn't say this, they were running around a studio called Gamma Studios, which was a cartoon studio. And I was like 11 or 12.
In the dream.
Scurrying around. Yeah. So I didn't see the guy. I just got this.
Did you know that you wanted to be a cartoonist?
Yeah.
At that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were on one path?
Yeah. I just still find that very, very weird that I had this random dream about a guy I've never met, and it's like it wasn't even on the radar.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that on a podcast before, but I didn't say what the actor's name was, but that's the actor's name. And that's always, these things just stay with you.
Oh,
so,
they do.
Yeah. So I had my father passed away about 15 years ago, and I've been getting stuff from him, from numbers, like waking up. His birthday was 3/13. Wake up at 3:13 in the morning, look right at the clock, 3:13. It still happens to this day. I'm driving, all of a sudden I look down at the gas gauge, it's 3:13, or the time is 3:13. Marjorie has texted me at this time, and it just happens way too much. But
way too much.
Way too much.
I like it though.
Yeah. Well, it's
comforting.
It's comforting, yeah. It's not like, but I don't know if he's just like me. No, yeah, I'm still around you, kiddo. Whatever.
It's nice because you've always had this, and now I receive it too.
Yeah.
From his father, and it's kind of nice. I don't have anybody else reaching out to me whom I would.
Yeah.
Well, that you know of.
That I know of.
Yeah,
that's true.
But it's it's kind of interesting that all these things happen, and I just I think a lot of people just shut this stuff down.
Yes,
when
most people do.
Yeah, and it's
which and the only reason I keep looking at my phone is because I have all these questions that were sent in.
This is from a listener.
This is from a listener, a faithful listener,
yeah.
And that leads us to our next question. And what they would like to know is, can anyone do what you do?
I don't think anyone can just do this. That's okay. I know I have allergies too.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody can just do this. I think there's a lot of responsibility behind it. I think that we're all born with intuition, just like we're all born to sing, but I could never sound like Mariah Carey, you know what I mean, or Frank Sinatra.
Right.
I like to describe it like that. I didn't look to do this. It was given to me.
Yeah.
It was something I've done apparently my entire life.
Right.
I do have a lot of clients that come in and say, oh, my kids can do this. Well, of course your kids can do it. All children can do this. It's a matter of if they want to stay open or not, but not everybody's a medium. Not everybody's a psychic. So to answer that question, I think you may be able to fine-tune your intuition, but I do think it's, God's choice on who he wants to do this work. I don't think not anybody can do it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes sense.
That makes sense to
me. It makes sense. I think equating it to like, some people are artists, some people are born to be doctors. Absolutely. And stuff like that. And you were given
calling.
Yeah. And some people are mechanics. They're like grease monkeys where they're really good at doing, like I could, a wrench to me is like, having two wrenches, like two left feet, it's like,
Well, it's kind of like you and I, Brian, right? Yeah. We were born to draw, right? But I was not meant to go where you went.
Right.
I'm still good at sketching and drawing and painting, and I'm still very creative.
Right.
But it wasn't a path for me.
Right.
It was a path for you.
Right.
Right? So you're the cartoonist. I was never meant to go in that path. So it's the same thing.
But and also likewise, he did have these feelings as a young child and a connection towards the spiritual.
Right.
But your life is the one that took.
Exactly. So you and I, there's a lot of parallels here.
Right.
It's like you were meant to be the cartoonist, but you're so super intuitive.
Yeah.
But apparently I was meant to go in this direction, in mediumship.
Right.
So that's my answer to that. I think that it's God's will. I think it's whatever's meant to be, or whatever is in your, whatever your path is meant to be.
I have an interesting question, because there's some people that are asking.
Sure.
And I don't mean literally asking, just they're looking for something to show up in their life.
Okay.
And maybe they're trying to connect with somebody or get a sign from somebody, and they get nothing. I hear this a lot. And I always say, you have to be receptive to it.
Absolutely.
And if you're not really receptive to it, it's not going to happen. So what's your thoughts on this?
So I have a lot of thoughts on that, because a lot of my clients will say, hey, they don't come around. My mother don't come around. My dad don't come around. Mm-hmm. I'm like, they absolutely do come around. Mm-hmm. It's just not in the ways that we think. So I actually have a lot of opinions on one of the other podcast episodes that you've done. Mm-hmm. You had mentioned some spirits come through as birds or pennies or dimes or quarters, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's my opinion on that. And I always say my opinion because I don't want to speak for other mediums or other intuitives.
Right.
So these are my experiences personally and from my clients. Sometimes a penny is just a penny. Sometimes a dime is just a dime. But when you pick up the dime, look at the date. Mm-hmm. Okay? So if the date means something to you, then that's the message.
Right.
If the date means nothing, it's just a dime.
Yeah.
So, as far as cardinals, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks cardinals are, spiritual, and they are, but sometimes a cardinal's just a cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like my father comes through as the blue jay, right?
Right.
But my father also came through as a really, really fat squirrel. Because my father's nickname was from the movie, he would be fat bastard. That's, so there's a joke around my father. So we're
going to have to censor that one.
I love birds and I love seeing them. And yes, there are times when they are just themselves, but there are times when it is very astoundingly clear.
Well, you will know. You will know. Also, I call it like a spiritual piggyback. So let's say you see the cardinal. Look at the clock. What time is it?
Right.
What song is on the radio? Mm-hmm. So, that cardinal may be a loved one, but, always look at your surroundings to confirm that that's a loved one. Because one thing I tell my clients is the truth is they're always around us, the spirit world, but not the way that we think, because they need to allow us to live our lives without them. Because if they're too close, then we can't grieve. Like I've only just I lost my father tragically 2.5 years ago.
Oh, sorry.
So if my dad were to be near me 24/7, I'm having a hard enough time, moving on now.
Sure.
So could you imagine? And my dad actually came to me in a dream visit, and he said, "When you're ready, I will come back." He hasn't come back yet because apparently I'm not ready.
Right.
But I have to grieve. But I do know that if he's the blue jay or however he decides to come. But I know it's him when I look at the clock or if whatever song is on the radio. So it's like a double validation.
Right.
So
things that are corroborating that visitation. I like the chubby squirrel. I love blue jays too.
No, you don't. It was hysterical. It was great. There's a whole story behind that one, but it was great.
Wow.
So yes, this is another question. The spirits that you're able to communicate. What this person wants to know, and I get why they're asking that. Where are they?
So.
Excuse me.
I don't think any medium can answer that 100%. I think it's our interpretation of where we see them when we're connecting, or what they're saying to us when we're connecting. So I would like to say that I was raised looking at the spirit world as heaven, right? Beautiful. Spirit has told me that there are colors that exist up there that we can't imagine. Like they don't even, like colors that we could never even imagine exist. Yeah. I do believe that through connection, I think from what they've told me, they're the best version of themselves. So we don't really lose who we are. So if we were fun or we had a great sense of humor, we still have that. We're no longer, envious, or we don't have those negative emotions anymore.
Right.
So I do believe it's a beautiful place. I do believe it's like white light and just, but I'm not meant to be there, not yet.
Right.
So I do think every medium has their own interpretation of what the spirit world looks like.
My grandmother, she's been gone for a long time, and she had a near-death experience where she saw a beautiful field of flowers, and there was a fence, and she started running toward the fence. And she started to climb the fence, and basically a hand rested on her shoulder and said, "Helen, it's not yet your time."
Yeah.
And but she described it as the most beautiful place, something that is not of this earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can't possibly understand it.
Yeah.
So I think that then, because the loved ones whom I have had who have passed, I want them to be of that place.
Of course.
So when I hear about people trying to reach out, and like in last night's podcast, you were saying that your mother feels that your father is still in the home.
Oh, he is.
No, I know he is, and that's why I get so cozy when I'm there.
Yeah.
But don't you also wish that they would be in that glorious next place?
So they can be in your house, they can be in all your siblings' houses, they can be in Paris and Italy and Rome all at the same time.
Okay, so there's Santa Claus.
And in the spirit world, yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to remember their energy. Energy is fast, it's quick. That's how mediums are able to read them.
I'm thinking of it in a very rigid, linear way.
Well, we don't
stop.
Well, we don't know. This is what I'm being told by the spirit world. But again, I only know what I'm allowed to know. But
I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard that many times.
Oh, they can be in like 8 different places, and
yeah,
in like less than a second.
Yeah, Marjorie has some weird stuff that's happened around people, like we talked about on the podcast about your fiance, and I don't know if you heard this one.
I was going to marry, and he passed, and I did tell the story on the podcast, but there was a moment where I felt that he was with me after he passed, and then I realized that he was at another friend's house, and I was on the phone with that friend, and I was inconsolable. I was so mad, and all the emotions, And then I said to the friend on the phone, he was trying to comfort me, and I said, "He's with you." And the friend freaked out, had to hang up the phone. "I love you. I'll call you in the morning, I promise." Called me the next day and said, "I'm sorry I jumped off the phone like that. I wasn't trying to get rid of you, but I did have a group of our really good childhood friends assembled in my home, and I had candles all on the table and a nice dinner, and when you said he's with you, all the candles went out. And it freaked him out." So I always felt kind of really bad about, scaring him like that. But it was as though I had this feeling that he was no longer with me, but,
well, he was with you. He was with all the above.
He was. I want him to be in heaven.
Well, but it is heaven.
Yeah.
It's parts of heaven. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
We really don't know.
Yeah.
But this is all the beauty.
Right.
Is the spirit world, is heaven, and they can be.
Well, everything is energy.
Everything is energy. Exactly.
Everything. This table,
Yeah.
this recording
Exactly.
unit, the water.
Exactly.
Yeah, and nothing is really solid. Everything is energy.
I've done readings where I've noticed that the spirit has jumped back and forth where I was reading I was reading one. Well, it was three sisters, but I was reading two sisters, and I noticed the father jumping back and forth to the other sister who was out of state.
Wow.
So, so it was, and they were just looking at me, and I'm like, oh no, yeah, he can do that. Like, so he was with all of his daughters.
Yeah.
But he was going back and forth, and what was interesting about it was he confirmed it, by saying what the sister was, what his daughter out of state was doing, and then coming back, and then they called the sister, and they were like, hey, were you doing A, B, and C? And they were like, yeah. And they were like, Daddy visited you during the reading.
Wow.
So that is, proof, that's validation that they are capable of jumping back and forth.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Have you ever been visited by someone who is still alive and they just wanted to reach out to you?
Because people think that
Just
well, some people believe this, that your spirit can leave your body at night. And I don't.
So my belief in that is the only time your spirit, well, I think there's a cord. I think when people sleep, there is a cord that connects.
Silver cord.
Cord that connects to your sleeping body to your spiritual self. But I have experienced where a friend of mine was dying of breast cancer, and I was, laying in bed, and she grabbed my arm. And, and I just looked at her, and like she grabbed my arm and then pulled back, and she was in this white, beautiful gown. And I was like, oh my God.
Wow.
But she was still alive. She hadn't died yet. She hadn't passed yet.
So she was kind of half in, half out?
So she was transitioning.
Wow.
So my belief is, for me, the only time I have seen somebody who has never passed away is somebody who's in transitioning. So, and my father's cousin as well, he came through while he was transitioning, but yet he was still alive. Actually happened during one of my readings. I forgot about that. Yes, the mother passed away during the session.
Oh my goodness.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget that one. And I said to them,
this elasticity between the two places.
Yeah, so when they were leaving, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, and they were like, what do you mean? And I'm like, Mom is here.
Yeah.
And they called the hospital, and Mom had passed. But
wow.
But Mom was like totally excited to come through during the session. Like she just passed, and then went right into the session. And and one of the girls was like, that was amazing. Like it helped them. Like kind of like, oh wait a minute, she passed, but she's right here. So, that's an experience that, like, even as a medium, it's like, oh my God, that was amazing.
We brought a box of tissues, and
because I'm a crier. It's okay.
It's okay.
Excuse me.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I don't like embarrassing people like that.
No, listen. That's my job. Everybody's. It's.
Sorry.
You have allergies.
Yes.
We have really bad allergies.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah. Well, you're doing better than me, so.
I'm trying not to choke.
That kind of leads into another question, which is, when you prepare for a reading, I'm sure you say like a prayer before you do the reading.
I have a 45-minute thing that I do.
Oh, really?
I do.
Wow. So it's like it's like a cleansing, right?
So, my choice is to say the Our Father, because that's how I was raised.
Right.
So I say the Our Father, and then I pray to, again, the Blessed Mother, Jesus, Saint Joseph is big in my world, and then what I do is I meditate. And what the meditation does is it protects my energy. I read in my home, so it protects my home.
Right.
Protects everybody in my house, but also it protects the people that I'm reading.
Oh, okay.
So two ways. I don't want them to pick up any negativity that may be in my space or in my home.
Right.
But I also don't want to pick up any negativity that the clients are bringing into my space. So I'm protecting both ways.
Okay, I got that.
That was one of the questions, was also, have you ever been attached by something that you did not want that was brought home with you?
I have a really good story, and I actually have the photo if you're interested in
Oh, yeah. We love to see it.
Yeah. So one of my friends that I met a little bit later on in life, she was Serbian, so they were very, very open-minded. Mm-hmm. And she would always tell me I had a female living in my car. And I knew it, but I never seen the spirit. Mm-hmm. So fast forward, it was raining, and this was in Brooklyn, and I was getting off the BQE. Mm-hmm. And I almost crashed, and I remember removing my hands from the steering wheel. Yeah. And I remember watching the steering wheel go like this, because I was going into the wall. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, thank you, whoever that was. Right. And I hadn't told my friend this.
Right.
So I
take it this is before, like, the automatic steering where it would actually correct.
Yeah. No, this was my first car.
What made
it was
you
an old
remove
car.
your hands from the wheel? To trust in God? Or?
I was a stupid kid. No, I was just panicked. Okay. I'm not going to lie. I just panicked. I went, and I wish it was something a little bit more deeper than that, but no, it was just, I don't know why. It was a moment.
Right.
But I do remember the wheel, like, driving it out of the pool, like, because it was raining hard, and I was getting off the exit, and I was going right into the wall. Anyway.
Wow.
So fast forward, my friend gets in the car a week later, and she's like, did you almost get into a car accident? So I was like, yeah. She's like, she saved you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't told her this yet, but that's the girl in my life, a little bit older, when we were very open-minded. Right. So fast forward. We didn't have iPhones back then. We had the 1 hour photos. Remember the cameras, right?
Yeah.
So it was her 21st birthday. She was a few months older than me. Mm-hmm. And we were taking pictures, right? Birthday pictures.
Right.
And there was like four more things left. What do you call it? So I just wanted to waste it just to develop the film, right?
Right.
So I was snapping pictures. Now, my friend was driving my car, because I never drove. I couldn't stand driving. So my friend was driving my car. Right. And if anybody's familiar with the Kosciuszko Bridge, there was a Budweiser sign.
We like that.
Right. There was a Budweiser sign. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stories about that bridge and a lot of hauntings. If you do a little digging, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I decided, hey, I'm just going to snap these 4 pictures so we can develop it, ding, 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 right? Mm-hmm. Next day, we go to the 1 hour the 1 hour photo, and I knew the girl. So I'm like, hey, could you do me a favor? Could you do this now? So she's like, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. So she does it. She hands me the photos, and I was with my friend, and we're looking through it, and she goes, you see, I told you there was a girl living in the backseat of your car.
Oh, my word.
She showed up in the mirror of my car. So I pulled a picture from her, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, right? And we're not afraid. We're just like, this is so cool, right? So now I go home, and I'm showing my family, and my cousin, is the daughter of my aunt who passed away. Mm-hmm. So there was like 5 girls. There's like 2 of them and then 3 of us. So like it was like 5 girls altogether. Right. One of those cousins worked for the FBI. So I was like, hey, what do you think of this? She was like, oh, I'm bringing this to the lab to make sure it wasn't messed with. And I'm like, well, I was there when they were, developing it, so I know it wasn't messed with. Right. Anyway, the lab turned around and they drew a cross on the envelope, and they were like, oh, this is creepy. And yes, yeah. And they were like, no, it wasn't. Yeah, that's literally what they did. They confirmed it, and they were like, no, this wasn't messed with, and that's exactly what they did. They went like this to my cousin. So my cousin comes back home, and she's like holding the envelope. She's like, here, you can have this.
Wow. Like it's dirty.
You can have this. So, throughout the years, we were like, who could this be, And I did feel her. It's just my friend happened to see her. I just never saw her. Right. Years later, I wind up finding out through another medium, and I brought the picture. So I went to a group reading. And I winded up finding out, he goes, do you have a picture of a spirit with you? And I'm like, yeah, I do. And he was like, it looks like it may be somebody who died in a fire. Do you have like an aunt? So I'm like, I don't know. I got to like research this now.
Mm-hmm.
So I go home and I'm like, hey, Ma, do we have anybody in the family who died in a fire? She's like, oh, yeah. Because my grandfather was one of like 18 million kids. And apparently one of them, and we're thinking it's Italy, we're not sure, died in a fire at 18 years old.
Wow.
So we're thinking that it was her. So again, fast forward, we're still not so sure because my other cousin, who is very big into Ancestry and 23andMe, and I've had other mediums look at it as well, we can't really get 100% on like who it is. So my cousin and I decided to go with, we're going to leave that as this is Antonina. But the picture, it's a little creepy.
It's
a little creepy.
No, we're gonna take a look at this now.
It's a visual, folks. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can get a copy of this. Put it on
We can put it on our blog.
Put it on the
So
blog.
I pulled-
Can we do that?
We'll see if whoever the spirit is allowing us. So that's in the side of my heart. So if you look at the picture, right?
Yes.
It looks
That's the side view mirror.
right. Exactly. So when the FBI looked into it, they said
She's smiling at you.
she's smiling. She was on my lap.
Plucks her eyebrows.
Wow.
And it looks like there's a Christmas tree behind her. So I think that kind of gives us a time frame,
Right.
like in December or around Christmas time.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you,
That's amazing.
we've pulled this picture up.
It looks
analyzed
it looks like it's a shot of someone in their living room, not in the back of a car.
So in her hand, so when the FBI pulled the picture up, it looks like she's holding a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm.
So in her hand, but when you pull up her face, it looks like she was burned.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you can see it, but can you see the face?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I
It
can
looks
see that.
disfigured, right?
Yeah.
The face looks disfigured.
Yep.
But remember, the medium didn't see the picture
Right.
before they said
Right.
died in a fire.
Wow.
So we're still not 100%.
Yeah, but she still looks quite pretty. She has these smiley eyes.
Yeah, but I have a lot of, these type of experiences with her. I used to smell burning wood,
Right.
and again, if this didn't happen to me, I probably wouldn't have believed it. But
It's pretty amazing.
It's
This stuff is just.
wonderful.
yeah,
I had an experience. I don't know if I ever told this on the show. I was driving into Manhattan early, and I was up late, couldn't sleep well. Got into the car in the morning early, and I'm driving in, and I'm on Northern State Parkway on Long Island, and it was right about the intersection of the Meadowbrook. But I was really groggy, and I started to like doze off as I was driving. And all of a sudden, it was just me in the car. There's nobody around me, no cars around. And it seemed like it came from the right side of me, behind me. But all of a sudden, I heard, "Get up!" like that. "Wake up!" And so I got startled and opened my eyes. And I was veering toward the center divider. I've never ever done that.
Thank you, Lord.
And this was years ago.
yeah.
But I was like, for the life of me, I was trying to figure out who that was. But
Could have been a guide. Might not have been a family member. It could have been a guide.
it could have been a guide.
Yeah.
Do you believe that people that predecease you, they can become your spiritual guide or guardian angel?
So I do believe they can to a degree, to a point. And the reason why I feel like our guides may be people or spirits that we've never met is because there's a reason why our guides have chosen us. I was told years ago, I would dream of a priest. It was kind of funny. I would dream of a priest and two women. And one woman looked very fiery, almost like witchy, right? The other woman looked like heavenly, very all in white. And then the priest, brown hair with the brown robe, right? These are the three people or souls constantly dreamt of. Did not recognize them, didn't know anything about them. I learned later on that those were three guides. So, I did a little bit of research. I've had other other spiritual intuitives kind of helped me figure out, why them. And then you learn as I got older. I'm like, oh, I get why. So I have a huge attachment to Salem. Okay, huge attachment to Salem. So, and I've named them, or they've told me their names. This is Eleanor, which she's my connection to heaven. And then I have Sabrina, who's my connection to, I want to say, when I say Salem, I don't want to a lot of times people go, oh, devil worshiper. No, not at all. Actually, my sister's Wiccan. It's a beautiful religion. They believe in Mother Nature. So I do think that she's that connection. It's more like a Mother Nature connection. And then I have my priest, which is my upbringing and my faith. So I do believe that these guides were brought to me, or they are my guides for a reason. And the reason is to help me, help others. And it's somebody once said, I forgot who said this, but somebody once said, if you were a pilot, wouldn't you want one of your guides to have been a pilot? Would you want, if you were a pilot, would you want like a baker to be your, right. So I think that our guides are our guides, to help us for our path. Like, you're creative, right? Right. You want somebody on the other side who was very creative. You don't want somebody who was a businessman or like in stockbrokers or something, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I believe that unless our loved one has some type of similar path when they were in the physical world, maybe they can help out, but I don't think it's what we think. I think they're there, but I wouldn't really consider them our guides.
That's interesting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was phenomenal.
Oh, yes, it was. I really enjoyed doing this interview. Just to let you know, we went to a remote spot and we did this interview, and it was the interview went long, but then we stopped and we continued talking about stuff for like another hour, which was pretty amazing. So,
well, for part one, there's just so much in there, and there are so many questions that she just very easily, very naturally answers. And it was one thing that and this actually continues in part two, guys. I know that Brian is on the brink of asking her throughout this conversation. I know Brian, and I know he's on the brink of asking her the next question, and she just automatically started answering it.
Yeah, it was really bizarre.
It's a very natural conversation, very, very attuned to each other.
Yes, and that happened as we got into the conversation. It was just like she was answering questions that I already had in my mind.
They were in the lineup.
Just lining it up. And it was just really amazing. So anyway, thank you, Jennifer Ann, for coming on. And
honestly, I mean, we still have a whole part two.
That's right.
And then after part two, we continued to chat. I could have sat with this lovely person all day. I wanted to just sit and have fun talking.
I think she felt the same way. She said the same, because it was just so. It was like we were, like we were friends, like we were, like for years. So it was pretty amazing. But anyway, well, let's wrap this up. Right. So next week will be part two of that interview. It will be uploaded Tuesday night next week on the 6th of August. And if you have, any comments, whatever, please post them on our Facebook page, or you can go to any service. There is a chat button. You can ask us a question, but you need to leave an email address so that we can actually respond to you, because people have texted us in the past on the chat feature, and there's no way of responding. So it's basically you have to kind of give us a little bit of information, like your email address. Or you can just go to our website. You can go to backtoParanormal.com, and you can put the question on there. So anyway, we have a little contest going on. I'll try to say this real quick. We're giving away a Back to Paranormal mug. And you can win that very easily by just posting a little review of our show and putting it on either Apple or Spotify or one of the services that carry us. And that would be great. And what we want you to do is take a snapshot of it, or at least give us the link to that review, and just send it to us at comments@backtoparanormal.com. That contest is good till August 31st, and the best review will win a free Back to Paranormal mug. So you'll be the first to get one. So that's pretty neat. How's that?
I think that's great.
Okay, great. Anyway, like I said, we have a lot of fun doing this show. I know Marjorie has a lot of fun doing it, and we hope you're having some fun with it too. And we'll see you all next week on another episode of Back to Paranormal. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.